Going on, guys? It's another edition of Timeout here on 24 Flix. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Cove. How you doing today, Chris?
Man, I'm doing okay. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of life going on, running around. You think it's going to slow down because the NFL has stopped, but the NFL never stops, bro. It never stops.
It never stops. It's an all-year thing. You have free agency, you have NFL Combine, you have the draft right around the corner. So we'll definitely talk about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what are the other teams doing around the league. On top of that, we'll also get into where some of these quarterbacks are going to be going. Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, possibly the Washington Commanders being sold to Jeff Bezos. Jalen Carter getting into trouble. What's that going to do to his draft stock? And then, of course, Chris, I know you love to talk about XFL action, so we'll get into that. Not so much when it comes to the Orlando Guardians. And then also, and then we'll talk about AJ McCaron and, of course, get into the NBA with LeBron James and Dame Lillard going off for 71 points. All that and much more here live on 24 Flix on Timeout. So let's start it out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers making moves already, of course, coming into the season. High expectations. Not so much right now because they're $55 million in the hole when it comes to their cap problem. Tom Brady has officially retired for good. We'll see how that works out. And already making some moves with Leonard Fournette asking for his release. Of course, playoff Lenny, who could forget that year in the Super Bowl and that postseason with the run that he had there. Donovan Smith looks like he's going to be released to save them about $10 million. So that's your left tackle. And now it looks like Cam Brate, one of their starting tight ends, is going to be released. And all I can think of at this juncture is that Leonard Fournette basically said it best. If he doesn't want to be a part of this rebuild, then more than likely it's not a reload, Chris. It's a rebuild. And I feel like this may be a tough season, and there may be more cuts to come.
Absolutely. So, Tommy was the miracle that showed up for Tampa Bay fans, showed up and gave you guys glory for, what was it, about 3 years? And then
3 years. Yeah. Super Bowl and then a couple NFC South championships. And then after that, the credit card bill is due, and I'm trying to be positive about it, but I don't know how much positive you can be when you're losing players left and right. Although, look, they're an 8-win team. So are there going to be some major changes to it? Yes. And of course, all eyes are on the quarterback situation with Kyle Trask. Is he going to be the starting quarterback? Well, it certainly seemed like Jason Light was gloating about the possibility of Trask being the number one starter. I got to ask you, does this organization deserve a timeout for starting Trask?
Hell yeah, they deserve a timeout because you've seen a little bit of him. You've seen a little bit of him, and I've been to camp. And I mean, Tom was there, so you really didn't get to see what Trask could do. You could see what he did at UF, up there in Florida, and I'm willing to give him a chance. But from what we've seen so far, I'm not really feeling hopeful for Kyle Trask. But you never know. They see him more than we do, but there is a lot of PR they have to do to save face. But come on, you got the GOAT leaving. That's a big drop that's going to happen automatically. As soon as you drive the car off the lot, the value drops, bro. Even if it's a Lamborghini, the value drops.
The value does drop, and this team's value has dropped. And you're exactly right. Trask only throwing 9 passes in his NFL career, coming into his 3rd year. So basically, you're settling on Trask to be the starter. I think they're going to bring in a veteran, but because of what we talked about with the salary cap, more than likely it's going to be a player like a Baker Mayfield, possibly a Gardner Minshew, possibly a Jacoby Brissett. These names are not setting anyone on fire at this point. And I still feel like this team can compete because they do have the weapons like a Mike Evans and a Chris Godwin. But at the end of the day, I feel like if Kyle Trask is the starting quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's definitely going to be a rebuild. They still have moves to make here. A longtime veteran stalwart and a Levante David could be going. He wants to come back, but I'm not sure if they're going to have the money to pay him. And then on top of that, Jamel Dean, which is another free agent, 26-year-old corner, played well last year. He may have priced himself out. So lots of changes there at $1 place for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll have to see what happens in the draft, but I feel like once again, this could be a very rough year, Bucs fans. We'll keep you abreast of that situation.
And
With
it's
that
funny,
being,
you can't say they're gonna drop down in the standings really because the NFC South was trash anyway. I mean, come on. So we'll
well,
see. We'll see how it goes. I think they might still be competitive depending on what they get at quarterback. But it's not going to be the same. I mean, the goat is gone. Thrill is gone.
yeah. And I thought they would be more interested in possibly a Derek Carr. I wasn't thinking Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers because once again, he's $60 million. We'll get back to him in a moment because nobody knows where he's going to go. But a Derek Carr would be interesting.
Hmm.
It's funny to say this, but the Bucs are not interested in Derek Carr. The Saints are interested. They've already had 2 meetings. They met with him at the Indianapolis Combine. You had the Carolina Panthers who have met with him twice, and now the Jets. So I think that basic shoe drops when Rodgers makes his decision. With that being said, Aaron Rodgers. What do you
Aaron
make?
Rodgers.
Yeah, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. You wanted to talk about the darkness retreat. By the way, you ever had a darkness retreat?
No, I've not had a darkness retreat. I wish I had a
I,
joke for that, but I really
I
don't.
feel like Aaron Rodgers deserves a timeout just for the darkness retreat. I mean,
Absolutely.
honestly, who wants to go into a house for 4 days with no electric on, no cell phone? I mean, what are you doing? You're trying to clear your head, and now you don't even know after coming out of this retreat if you want to be a Green Bay Packer. He's got 60 million reasons why. Of course, that's $60 million salary, but I feel like the Green Bay Packers should just kind of move on at this juncture. Go with Jordan Love. They drafted him a couple years ago as a #1 pick. You got to see what you have there, and I feel like you should move away from Rodgers and possibly trade him to the Jets or the Raiders. How do you see it?
Right, same thing. It's a lot of money, man. I mean, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I would try to stay
Mm-hmm.
just for that money. He said Green Bay, he's been there so many years, it's always going to be home to him. He doesn't have much time left. Would you really go to New York after, spending so much time out there with the wilderness and everything? It's like Karl Malone leaving Utah for LA. That didn't work out great. But it's like he's kind of chilling and taking his time and talking calmly, like he's done the past couple years. And everyone else is freaking out. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Everybody's freaking out and waiting and waiting. Well, is it here? Is it New York? And he's just kind of, I'm just gonna take my time and make a decision and go
That's how
sitting in the
exactly how
dark.
he was saying it on the
Ex-
podcast yesterday. I
exactly.
mean, it
Yeah.
was just a must to listen to podcast material. Absolutely made me fall asleep listening to boys talk about his. Who cares? Aaron Rodgers
Exactly.
deserves a timeout at this point. Move on, Green Bay Packers. It's time to move on to the Jordan Love era. I get it. Rodgers is semi-talented. You could probably get a plethora of picks from the New York Jets and the Raiders because they're desperate at this point. You better make a move because this quarterback class is fast approaching. And I'll give you a team out there that's going to be a surprise. And you're going to laugh when you hear this.
Okay.
The Miami Dolphins seem like a logical choice. And I tell you why. Because if you listen to Mike McDaniel yesterday at the Combine, they have been non-committal when it comes to Tua and the 5th-year option. On top of that, you get Aaron Rodgers with those weapons. I mean, Chris, what would you think about A-Rod with the Miami Dolphins?
Let me tell you, when Tua was healthy, um, they slayed. They really, really slayed. They were on a run, setting. They were leading the league in passing. So that does not surprise me at all. Tua, like I said, one hit, he's done. That's it. I mean, and um, are you really gonna set your $1 million franchise on the arm of someone who's like 1 or 2 hits from being out? So I am not surprised by that. That would be a fantastic move, and I think the Dolphins fans would lose their minds to have Aaron Rodgers down here, even if he's a 1 year, 1 year rental, then he's out. I mean, Bucks did it for 3. So,
Mm.
but they have everything else, man.
They do. And we talked about Derek Carr. He's still yet to make a decision. And the report was that it may not necessarily just be about financial, it may be overall fit. So, who
Hmm.
do you see him going to if Rodgers doesn't select the Jets? Could you see Carr going to the Jets? The Jets have already commented. They feel like he could be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think the
Hmm.
Jets are. Carr's a good quarterback. I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but the team is there. He's not going back to the Raiders, possibly the Panthers and the Saints. Where do you see Mr. Carr going, and what's the best fit, in your opinion, for this quarterback?
I'm thinking the Jets. If Aaron goes back to the Packers, which I think that's what he's going to do, I think the
Wow.
Jets are a great fit for him, and I really think that that's really all they need. They had everything else, except they had possibly the worst possible quarterbacks that they could have. I
Mm.
mean, backups to backups, and this is not San Francisco. They did not have the quality backup play to get them anywhere. Again, they were on a strong run last year, but their quarterback play just tore everything apart.
Yep. Just in the season, you're absolutely correct. And I kind of think Aaron Rodgers may end up with the Jets, but who knows? Maybe he wants to go to the Raiders. Maybe he stays with the Packers. I'm just throwing the choice out there
Yeah.
for the Miami Dolphins. Speaking of quarterbacks, what happened with the Washington Commanders and Carson Wentz? They cut him the other day, Chris, saved $26 million. You're a big time fan of that NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys. What has happened to Carson Wentz?
You know, I love this kind of news with the commies. So, Carson Wentz fell apart with the Eagles. He had injury riddled seasons again and again. They went to the Super Bowl basically with the backup, taking them there. Carson couldn't finish. The Colts took a flyer on him. It was a disaster. So, of course, Daniel Snyder and the commies, they said, "I will take him." And again, same thing, dumpster fire. So this is not a surprise. It's too late. They should have done that. They shouldn't have grabbed him in the first place. Again, band-aid, quick fix. No. So I mean, I think this might be his last chance.
Well, and I think he may end up with actually the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because
Oh
they are
no.
the betting favorites right now. But to be fair to Wentz, 27-7 with the Colts, but of course he couldn't beat the Jacksonville Jaguars that year, which was disappointing because all the Colts got to do is beat them and they get into the playoffs. And then in a
But
game
wasn't
where
that a horrendous game? Like
yes,
multiple
yes,
interceptions, like 3 or
yes,
4
yes.
interceptions.
He did the same thing this year when the Commanders had an opportunity to get to the playoffs. Again, he was
Mhm.
not able to succeed. So that's why they're moving on. Second overall pick. He's got lots of potential. He's going to be cheap. I could definitely see him getting another shot to either compete for a starting job or be a backup in the league. What else
Give
is
him a
going on with
clipboard.
the Commanders and their ownership there?
Well, so there's some talk about a young man named Jeff Bezos. He owns the Washington Post.
Yes.
He's
Rich young man.
one of the I love Amazon. Order something today.
Sure.
Um, a back scratcher for the sour, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Daniel Snyder doesn't want him to have the team. So word is there's a
He
bunch of
doesn't
stuff
want
going
his
on.
back scratched. Is that what you're saying to me? He doesn't want his back scratched by
He
Bezos.
doesn't want Bezos to have another toy in his bathtub. How about that? And he definitely doesn't want them to be see, I almost said it.
Yep,
I almost
you
said the
almost
red
did it.
word, the
Yep.
commies. He doesn't want them to be the commies. Also, there's some talk about some improprieties with some funds uh, that Snyder is dealing with that the NFL is investigating. So he's got that going on. There's still no movement as far as the cases with the cheerleaders
Mhm.
and the improper behavior with them, where the reports and emails have been blocked, except the ones that were sent out to our guy John Gruden that got him axed. So there's all kinds of stuff going. It's a mess out there with the commies. They're still making moves. They're still trying to build a season. They grabbed Eric Bieniemy. Good move for them. They had to give him an assistant head coach tag on top of his OC position, and he will be calling the plays, which many people think that's what's blocking him from getting being a head coach. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, and the word is Sam Howell is going to be the number one starter, but look for them to possibly go and sign a Jameis Winston, because word is that Bieniemy always wanted to work with Jameis Winston. In fact, he wanted the coaching job with
Mhm.
the Saints, and of course didn't get it. So lots of expectations with them going forward. We'll see how that works out.
Right?
Some serious stuff here yesterday happened with number one, possibly the number one overall pick in Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of Georgia, turned himself in from the incident where a Georgia recruiter and also a football player died in a street. That's what you come to, alleged street racing incident.
Hmm.
He left the scene of the crime. He
Hmm.
lied to authorities, and he said yesterday he would be fully exonerated. He was back at the combine today. But my problem is, and he definitely deserves a timeout.
Yeah.
And I get it. People are going to say, look, he's 22 years old. He's a young kid. You made mistakes when you're a young kid. But let me get this straight here, Chris. You got the biggest job interview in your life. You have an opportunity to be a millionaire type slash multi-millionaire. And all you got to do is stay out of trouble. And you're not able to do that. To me, that is a big time red flag. I get it. He's lots of talent. Possibly the Chicago Bears will look at him in that top five. But it just gives me cause for pause at the end of the day. What is he thinking? Is he going to be accountable for his actions? Is this going to wake him up? Is he going to serve any jail time? Because it is a misdemeanor for
Hmm.
reckless driving and street racing and everything like that. A lot of people say, well, it's not a serious. It is serious because two
It is
people
serious.
died in that incident. And there was actually a player just a week ago from Georgia that was street racing. So there's something wrong with the culture. You have Stetson Bennett getting publicly intoxicated. I don't know what he's doing. I guess I don't get it. Like, I'm the old guy, the man that says, get off my grass. Because if you have a lifetime opportunity like that, why are you even chancing it at the end of the day? Why even go through that? Why even put a target on your back when all you got to do is stay out of trouble, go through the process, let your talent speak more than anything else? I'm just saying.
This was it's the timing of when this happened. So this happened on a day of a celebration of their championship. So they're still partying and and whooping it up. And they went out and they decided to go street racing. He wasn't thinking about the combine. The combine was what, a month away. He wasn't thinking about those things. He was like, let's celebrate, let's get wild. Youthful, stupid mistake. And two people paid with their lives for it. Um, he's not being charged for murder or anything like that. So you know how the system works. He's gonna play football. He's got that talent, and it's all about the talent and money. And he's in the combine. He's one of the best in the country. So this is gonna be a definite wake up for him because the whole nation is talking about him. But he's gonna be in the NFL, no problem, no
I mean,
problem.
just make some sense of it, because he's not the only athlete that's done this in the past. I mean, you talk about Warren Sapp. I mean, there's
Hmm.
been a list of them. Laramie Tunsil on draft night, he has a video released of him taking a bong shot. It's just, again, I just don't understand it. Like, why would you put yourself in that situation when you have the opportunity of a lifetime to be a millionaire, generational wealth for your family going forward, and you chance it because you want to party? Maybe he should have been thinking about the combine. And maybe that's not necessarily the player that I want to give $1 million to, or
Hmm.
have one of my cornerstones of my franchise, or bring him in the community. I get it. He made a mistake, but I think that's what general managers and owners have to contemplate. Maybe I'm making too much of a big deal about it, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's not just about talent. And it's not just about wins. It's also about character.
Right.
If you don't have that character, it could definitely cost your team, not only off the field, but on the field also.
Right, and this just looks like a youthful, bad judgment move. Um, if there was a pattern of him doing things like this, I would
Sure.
say that that goes more into his character. This is just, oh man, we're on top of the world. Let's get crazy. And right now he's paying for it. He's
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the NFL combine is going on. Of course, it always starts with quarterbacks.
yep.
Do scouts deserve a timeout on Bryce Young? I mean, much has been made about the man's size. He's 5'11". Some people are saying he's 5'10". Do they make too much of this with the size? Because we've seen smaller quarterbacks fit in the NFL. We've seen Russell Wilson and Drew Brees.
hmm
And again, I get it, he's mobile. Are scouts making too much of a big deal about his size? Do they deserve a timeout, Chris?
I think they do, but it's that this is that time of year where
Mm-hmm.
everyone's looking at numbers and stats and speeds and height and jumping ability and lifting ability. They're looking at all those little stats right now. So it's natural that this comes up. It's funny you didn't hear anything about that during the playoffs and things like that. But now when it comes down to stat time and NFL combine time, then these things come up. But like you said, there's been many examples of shorter quarterbacks killing it. Um, and I think he should get his chance, and he will. He's an excellent quarterback.
Yeah, definitely win a Heisman Trophy. You're definitely an excellent quarterback. You have lots of skills at the end of the day, but I think the questions are there not only with his size, how much muscle can he put on? You're going to have to protect him. And you saw
Mhm.
what happened with Tua, right? Lots of red flags, same university there. He's tough. Hopefully, he could stay healthy because the rigors of the NFL are not great to everyone. With that being said, XFL action. I know you're covering the Orlando Guardians. Not so much.
Right. You're making
What's
me
been
laugh.
going on?
All right. Let's make this quick. I have two XFL stories. First, I watched the Guardians and the Brahmas. I did not go to the game. I watched it from home. Have never seen so many open rushers dart straight for the quarterback, straight for the kicker, not touched over and over again. The Orlando Guardians, which I don't like the name, they took it from the New York Guardians when they reshuffled the league. 30-12, they lost to San Antonio Brahmas, the Brahma Bulls. It wasn't even a game. Paxton Lynch was terrible. DeAndre Francois, formerly of Florida State, was terrible. So they're basically like the New York Jets, no quarterback. It was very, very hard to watch. There were some good games over the weekend, but that's not my local team. I want to see my local team do something, and they were garbage. So we'll see how they go this coming weekend. Now, the other XFL story I have, and this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Young man named AJ McCaron, former, again, University of Alabama quarterback. AJ was a backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, making $4 million a year. And he quit that job to play for the St. Louis Battle Cats for $60,000 a year so his kids can come and see him play every week. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's the Battle Hawks, but I would
Battle
love to see Battle Cats because I think of He-Man, and I was a big time He-Man when I was younger. That would probably be a cooler name, but it's a great story, right? I mean, AJ McCarron, another Alabama quarterback, of course, famously tabbed by Brent Musburger at the time. Let your babies grow up to be quarterbacks because he had a beautiful girlfriend. Of course, Brent googling all over her, and now he gets to come back and show his kid that he can play quarterback. It is a great story. It's a breath of fresh air because instead of taking the $4 million and most likely having the best job in the league as a backup quarterback, because if you got a guy like Joe Burrow, you're not going to see a lot of time. You're getting paid $4 million to hold a clipboard. Where do I sign up for that job at the end of the day?
Right.
But
You don't even have to carry a clipboard anymore. You got this little Microsoft Surface.
Right,
That's
which
it.
Tom Brady is throwing as we speak and breaking, and the NFL is finding him right now. But you're exactly right, and it's a great story. Hopefully, they continue to win because it becomes even a better story. Of course, with that kid watching, nobody wants his kid doesn't want to see him lose. So,
Right.
but I remember that whole story of Brent Musburger. centering in on his girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
That
That was
was
his
him.
girlfriend? Oh,
Was his
I
girlfriend?
remember
Yes.
that game, man. It's like,
You
dude,
remember
what are
what
you
he
doing?
said? Remember what he said?
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
remember what he said. They
Yeah.
just kept going back to her. They kept going
Yep.
back to her.
Kept on going
Um,
back to her. So it was a
let's get
definitely
into some let's
yeah,
get into some NBA news.
absolutely.
Huge news came out today. Big blow for the Lakers. LeBron James. Um, he had a foot injury over the weekend,
Mhm.
and they said he will be out a few weeks. Came out today. They said they will look at it in 3 weeks. We have about 19 or 20 games left in the season. The Lakers are not in a playoff spot yet and battling to try and move up to the at least number 10th spot. I think they're 12 or 13. So troubling for the Lakers, possibly being out of the playoffs for 2 years straight. So what are they going to do? Bron, nothing's going to happen.
I mean, shocking development. Braun is hurt. AD's hurt. I mean, what's next? I mean, one of those guys falls out of bed, they're going to get hurt. But you have to
That's
feel bad,
right.
of course, in the NBA because LeBron James is still one of the most talented players, of course, breaking the all-time scoring record. He actually gets hurt, goes out of that game after breaking the record. And who knew that it was actually going to be a foot injury? And that's going to hurt the Lakers' chances of making the playoffs at the end of the day. They're most likely toast. And furthermore, could this, be a sign of things to come? Do the Lakers move on from him next year? He's still playing at a high level, but
Mhm,
how long can his body hold up? There was something the other day because I know locally you're in Orlando
mhm.
that the Magic were actually predicted to take his son, Bronny James. Do you think the Magic would take Bronny and get LeBron James as another player? I mean, I remember something along the lines of LeBron would never want to play in Orlando, but wouldn't it be so if they drafted his son and because he wanted to play with his son, he actually ended up with Boncaro and of course Bol. I mean, a young team like the Orlando Magic, not such a bad thing, right?
Not such a bad thing. I'm pretty sure he would not be super happy about that. Because I mean, come on, man. They spent what months and months here in a hotel in Orlando, just stuck. It was rough that they and the way the fact that they got through it. I'll give it a test to all the players that came down here and played, man. But I don't blame him for saying that. But if the Magic take him, they can make the room for him. I'll tell you that. And gosh, having people like Markel Fultz, Paolo, other players getting the experience of LeBron James and being in the same locker room and on the same floor and practice with him and on the floor during games. Oh, you can't beat the experience that they would get. And they would have Bronny. So that's something that they could make happen. Definitely.
Definitely can make it happen. The exposure would be Tom Brady times two because you got Tom Brady in Tampa, you got LeBron James in Orlando. It's not as far fetched as you think it is. What was far fetched was the Orlando and how the Magic, how they got trounced by the Bucks the other night, 139 to 117. Now they're 4 games out of that play-in spot. I love talking about this team. I love the young pieces, but
Mhm.
reality sets in. Do you think they can make this run and get into this play-in game here, or do you think
It's
they're just too young and it's not their year?
it's doubtful. Too many losses thrown away earlier in the year when they were figuring things out and dealing with injuries. I never say never because this is a very talented team. They did run with the Bucks for 3 quarters, but then Giannis was just Giannis and destroyed them in the end. They could not stop the man. Like LeBron in past years, you could not stop him. He could come down and do whatever he wants. And it's the same with Giannis now. But the Magic kind of the last 3 games at home, Indiana whooped them, and Indiana is right above them in the playoff hunt. Then they went to New Orleans and beat New Orleans 109 93. Good game. Paolo had 29 in that game. But then, of course, you got to face Milwaukee. I think they face Milwaukee here next week. They're in Charlotte tonight, and then they come back home. So um, it'll be close, but it's doubtful. It's very, very doubtful, and it's a shame because these guys deserve it. They really, really never ever quit on what they got going on, man.
And it
So
looks like Jonathan Isaac had another setback with his leg hamstring
yeah,
injury. I mean, again, he's lots of potential defensively.
yeah,
Just again, you're going to have to expect it, but lots of young
mm,
pieces. I think the future is bright for this Orlando Magic team. Speaking of
absolutely.
future being bright, you have an NBA prospect that seems like it's on everybody's radar. Talk about that a little bit.
Victor Wembanyama. Okay, this kid is 19 years old. He's in France. He lives in France. He's 7'2", but he's 19, so he's still growing.
Hmm.
So he has a few more inches in him. He's considered to be the best draft prospect in the NBA since LeBron James. Pretty much a sure thing. And you've got teams that have been tanking, so to speak, tanking in order to get a shot at drafting him. Now, the difference in the draft lottery is minute. I believe there's 4 spots where I think you get like a 23% shot, or even less than that. It might be 14.
Sure.
Um, for this generational talent. That is Houston, Charlotte, Detroit, and San Antonio all have the best chance to get them. If the Magic do not play the playoffs or make the playoffs, they will be down there also with a shot at getting him. And then also they have the Chicago Bulls, a protected pick from the Chicago Bulls. So they'll have a couple of draft picks in the first round. So it's going to be an interesting draft for Orlando. So we'll see who gets Victor. They're all drooling over him, and everyone is ready to get them. But there's other talent out there too, and we'll get more into that as the draft gets closer. I do have some MLS news.
Sure.
Orlando City has started. The season has started. They won their first game. Penalty kick by Facundo Torres, and it's 1-0 over the New York Red Bulls. Good game. They play again this Saturday. They got smart in the MLS, and they got rid of afternoon games. So all the games are at 9:30 p.m., which is great. And
Nice.
they have a new owner of MLS. One Giannis Antetokounmpo and his brothers have bought a piece of Nashville SC,
Wow.
the Nashville MLS team. So he's a team owner, and he's just blown away coming from where he's come from. Now he owns a franchise. It's an amazing, amazing story.
It is an amazing story. And speaking of amazing, Damian Lillard with 71 points against the Rockets. I mean, he's one of the most underrated players, I feel like. And honestly, I'm wondering when he moves on. I want to see him stay with the Blazers, but I feel like we're going to miss out, and he's going to miss out on an opportunity to go and get a championship. What did you think about his performance the other night?
He's amazing. Dame is amazing. He showed it in the All-Star game. He walked to the half court line and shot a 3. Then he walked it again the next play. He walked to the half court line and shot a 3. It's just him. He can do it. The crazy thing, this is the highest scoring season in NBA history. Guys are making 50-point games like every week. We don't even flinch at me. It's not even news anymore. This is just
Well, Chris, there's no defense anymore. There's no physicality to the game. I keep on telling people this. It's missing out of it. I guess, again, the ratings. I mean, you look at the All-Star game, there's no defense in that either. You see those type of performances.
Right.
I mean, it's not surprising, but yes, these players are very skilled, but I'd like to see a little bit of a balance, some physicality to the game, a little bit of defense, but an amazing performance by Lillard. With that being said,
well, let's do this.
yes.
Let's give the NBA a timeout for the
Yes.
lack of defense.
For the last 10 years, it seems.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
all right. Speaking of possibly needing a timeout, Tom Brady is not going to be an announcer this year or a commentator. He's not going to be an NFL quarterback unless something changes here in the next couple of weeks. But it looks like he's going to be a stand-up comedian. You buying this, Chris?
Tom Brady deserves a timeout. Dude, stand up, really? Tom Brady?
Yes.
Come on, man. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
He could definitely troll somebody when he's on social media, but as far as being a comedian, I'm just not sure about it.
Can you imagine him walking on a stage at the Comedy Store? I mean, come on. Take
No,
my
I
wife
can't
to sleep.
imagine. I mean, it would
Yeah,
sell out. I mean, it's
oh,
an event
yeah,
that you would have to go see, but would it be a complete train wreck?
absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Well, then
Hands
sign me
down, man.
up. All right, Chris, give me some final thoughts here in another edition of Timeout on 24 Flicks.
Final thoughts, man. I'm so glad that we can keep getting together and doing this, man. Um, for me up here in Orlando, it's getting busy. The Magic are wrapping up the final month and a half of their season. Orlando City Soccer is starting their season, and then April 2nd, the Orlando Pride National Women's Soccer Team starts their season. Plus, I might try and get into an XFL game. I don't know, man. It's like, is it worth driving up there and going through all that? I don't know. So it's really hopping up here in Orlando as far as sports. I will go to church. When I go to church this Sunday, man, I'll put in a prayer for your Bucks. You know, I go to church down there in Tampa, so I'll
Yeah,
put in a prayer for the Bucks.
put a prayer in for the Orlando Guardians that they can actually get a win and not get their coach fired. I mean, I guess my final thoughts would be speculation season is in full bloom, right? It's the most
Yes.
wonderful time of the year when it comes to free agency. What quarterback is going where? How's this quarterback carousel going to work out? How is the draft going to work out? We'll definitely keep you abreast of that situation here live on Timeout. For the great Chris Cuff here on 24 Flicks, I'm your host, Peter Blake. We'll see you next time here on Timeout, because you never know when you're going to get a timeout.